Hey, what's going on? What an honor it is to have you join us for a few minutes. And we're going to talk
I'm
about
sorry, we have
love.
to shut it
Let's
down.
talk
We have to
about
shut the whole
love.
thing down
Why are we shutting it down?
because it caught me off guard, and I just like
That's all right. People like
look
it
stunned.
when you're stunned. That's what marriage does. It's
Oh my
I
gosh,
take her breath away.
they're
That's
in
why
our
I'm
house.
that's why I can teach you about marriage tonight. I have this capability.
Uh,
Hey, we're going to talk to you a little bit out of our book. It's around February, and we're coming up on Valentine's Day, which is
True.
the holiday of love, one that I'm known for. People call me Reverend Love or the Minister of Love.
Do they?
And
Do they call you
no,
that?
no, but
It
there
is
is a dude named that.
Rev Love.
Rev Love. I think he's Rev Love. Something like that. I think it really is his
Well,
name.
he might not be. I don't know what he teaches, so we might
I
not
wonder
want
if
to
he's got that. If that was my name, I would have it trademarked, right?
tell. I just want you to tell the people what your special nickname was in Spanish class. His poor Spanish teacher in the middle of Western Kentucky was trying to teach a bunch of kids who didn't care anything about Spanish because there was no use for it as far as they were concerned at the time
We
because there
could
wasn't a
pick
lot of
whatever
Hispanic
name we
population.
wanted, an Hispanic
They
name,
could.
right? While we're
She
learning
was trying to
Spanish.
coerce these kids
And
in, so she was trying to
I
draw them in.
told her
You can
that
have a
my
nickname.
name was Julio Iglesias because I was the world's greatest lover. And that was my Spanish name. But listen, her name,
She had
her
to call him
name,
that for the whole semester.
well, I'll leave her unnamed, but this is so much fun for you. If you're into things like this, she was a Spanish teacher. Her name was Miss Rocha, and she drove a Ford Fiesta, right? So there's so many things. Like
So
if
fantastic.
anybody was built to teach Spanish, it was this lady. The football team, we kind of like to harass her. It was kind of bad, but we picked up her Ford Fiesta. I didn't, but it's rumored some people did, right? Somebody somewhere. We got it had like bumper rails on the front and the back of this Ford Fiesta. So the football team, when she would be in there teaching, we would get her Ford Fiesta and we'd carry it to the other side of the
Poor
building
lady.
and put it down. And so she'd come out, she couldn't find her car and that kind of thing. I'm praying for you,
Well,
Miss Rocha, wherever you are right now. I'm sorry. I repent. May God heal
my
me.
Spanish
save me, forgive me.
teacher decided that in the middle of Texas, which is like casual Spanish territory, right? Where I grew up, like we're all just, it's like literally like being a Texican almost. Like
Yeah, sure.
this is our culture. This is where we are. People speak Spanish all around us all the time. Only she came in and she decided that because she was a missionary in Spain when she was young, we were all going to learn Castilian Spanish. And it was so difficult. Not even the kids who were fluent in Spanish knew what she was saying. And she wore really thick tan pantyhose with sandals, which was odd.
All
Probably
right.
from her missionary days.
Well, come
It's
on, mi
fine.
amor. Let's talk about love handles
We're
right
going
now.
to talk today about how to invest into your marriage. And if you don't know, today is a great day to learn. But if you know a little bit, maybe you'll learn some more. And investing is, we were talking on our last podcast a lot about how that you had to invest, that you had to put in, or you couldn't make a withdrawal. And I would love it if you would do us a favor today. Just like, share, subscribe, and share this with your friends right now, beginning of the live event, so that they can get in there. Now, I want you to tell me something. If you have invested into your spouse this week and it is PG, I want you to put it on the
line right now.
below. We'd love to hear from you guys. Hear your
Or if your
ideas.
spouse did something nice for you this week.
Oh,
put it
that's
on the
true.
line.
It could be like the brag line. That's going to get you some points. That in and of itself is investment for some people if their spouse likes that kind of thing.
It's always fun to find out. I like to find out where people met too. Like, where did you meet?
Well, we met behind a dumpster.
We met behind a dumpster. Jesse was drinking a leftover slushy. We locked eyes. I saw her. I walked across the back of the 7-Eleven.
It was
I pointed
special.
at her. I started pulling her in like the cowboy deal.
Just an
I
invisible
grabbed
rope.
her. I French kissed her. We've been together ever since. So
Mm.
that's how we met. Come on. Julio Iglesias, the world's greatest lover.
We did not. Can you please tell these people
Jesse,
how we
here's how
actually met?
I met Jesse because my brother married Jesse's cousin,
Oh my God.
which makes Jesse my special cousin. So I'm so
Everyone
honored
in
to
the
be here
studio
with you today
is embarrassed
with
now.
my special cousin.
None of that's true.
Listen, there ain't no love like cousin love. That's all
my
I got to
gosh.
say. Come
Y'all
on.
pray for me. I need help from heaven.
It's
we are
why we
not-
look alike. People think we look alike.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do. We look at our eyes. We
Look
both
at
have
us.
blue eyes, right?
Can you just
We're
tell
kinda
him he doesn't
colored
look like
the
me?
same way. We
It's
look.
not the same.
We start.
We
We're
are not
looking
the
alike.
same. I want to tell
Come
you
on,
something.
don't deny my love.
This is the deal. Just for all of you who are really like, oh my God, didn't they live in Kentucky? And they are cousins. That is not true. But his brother did marry a girl from my family who was my cousin. We are absolutely unrelated. There is no blood connection, and brothers
I
from
have
one
a
family.
nephew
No, don't
that
talk yet.
Jesse
No,
is
no, no.
also. Jesse
Put this in your mouth.
is his aunt and his cousin.
Oh my gosh.
That's a Kentucky kind
No,
of story.
but
Try to sort that out.
I
in your
want to
mind.
say it right. Brothers, married cousins from a whole nother family, and we are unrelated. Although we do have Jacob, who is also he's from both of our
He's his
families
own
because he's
grandpa.
from the other. He's his own grandpa. That's
Yes.
funny. Okay, so we're going to talk
Let's
about this
talk
today.
marriage now. That's
Everything's
enough
on the
with
up
the
and up,
banter.
guys. Don't be
No,
scared.
we're really not related.
No,
not
we are
related.
not.
His love handles.
Can you tell them how we actually met? Could
No,
that be a
here's
thing?
how we met. If you
Could
want
we
to know
tell the truth?
how we met, I'm going to tell the truth and nothing but the truth now.
You're
I
under
never
oath.
tell a story that God couldn't do. I know a preacher, his stories get messed up. He's getting older now. We
They
always
get
say
better and better
they
every
get
year.
better every time. We're like, he never tells a story that God couldn't do, right? It's not that he did, but he couldn't do it.
That's right.
Jesse and I, it was like the late 90s, 98. Jesse's dad was a preacher in West Texas, pastored Victory Church, and I was a kid going crazy in Western Kentucky. Our families knew of each other. Then my brother married into Jesse's family, and I was strung out, messed up, had nowhere to go in life, and God spoke to her dad. We were on a golf trip. I was there with my brother. All of her family was there. We were down in Florida, and I was down there trying to get away from a bunch of outlaw friends of mine because, who you're around is a lot when you're young.
Yeah.
Who you're around's a lot when you get older.
True.
And so her dad and her mom, they heard from the Spirit of God. They were pastors. God told them that kid's going to be in your life a long time. And I want you to give him an opportunity to come out to West Texas, get away from his outlaw friends, and give him a chance, right? Where he
Sure.
can get his mind right, get
Which
sober.
which was huge because my parents had helped a lot of people, but never taken like a personal, we're going to take this kid and help him, especially
Well,
'cause
there's risk involved.
there's a lot of risk and it's super not wise. I mean,
No.
unless that was just an absolute command of the Lord, you must. And God knew that you weren't dangerous, so he instructed them. But that's not something that we would advise anyone to do or that we would even do
No.
today.
I wouldn't
but-
do that unless God just showed up and talked to me.
And they knew
supernaturally.
people that knew you and they absolutely knew why you were coming. But
Well, I was a drug addict, not a serial killer at the time.
true.
You know what I'm
but
saying?
those
I
can come in
wasn't-
the
I
same
was-
package.
they
Don't be
can.
deceived.
And like, here's the next thing. People hear our testimony. Like, I came there, I got saved, got the devil cast out of me, got spirit filled, got my mind renewed, got called in the ministry. People think Jesse just immediately started dating me. They hear the story, they don't know the timeline, but it was 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years of me living sober,
It was
doing my
probably
stuff
a
right.
year before we even hung out as friends. I would sometimes have deals with, you and my dad would be somewhere and I would be there as a family, but it took about a year. I mean, I would still go out with my friends
Well,
and we would
sure.
have it was not, oh, look at Brian, I'm
We're
going to date.
dating.
No, I
No.
mean, I was very, very committed and dedicated. And within a year, God had delivered you, set you free, and cleaned up your life in a way that was supernatural. I mean,
But a
so
year's
beautiful.
not, let me say this as a pastor now, a year's not a long time
It
for
is
a guy to be
not.
sober.
No,
And for you to know he's not going to fall off the wagon and destroy your life.
no, it's not.
As a matter of fact, I've seen this happen in our churches. Earlier when I was a younger guy,
Mhm.
this gal gets enamored with this guy. They show up, they start dating, and I loved them both. I love the
Of
guy, I
course.
loved her. But just because we love a couple people or a couple people come to your church doesn't mean you should marry them.
No.
Like people, I remember a girl started dating a friend of mine. She said, I've started dating this guy. He's a friend of yours from
On
Facebook.
Facebook.
I'm like, the last people you want to date are my friends.
Yeah.
People that I used to run around with, they're all
Yeah.
outlaws. They're
We're friends with everybody.
I'm friends with it. I'm a friend of sinners.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that doesn't mean you need to date this guy.
No.
So I've seen this one girl, she gets enamored with this guy. They start dating for like a few weeks. They show up and like, we want to get married.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, I can't stop you from getting married, but we're not marrying you at this church house because this guy hadn't been sober for, 3 Sundays. He's been in here off the crack pipe for 3 Sundays.
Correct.
And just because back then I remember you remember whenever, what's the studded jean store in the mall? All the
I don't know that they still sell them, but it was Buckle at
it
the
was
time.
Buckle. So this guy got off dope and he like bought a bazillion Buckle
He
outfits.
buckled himself.
And he got him a spray tan. He was
did get a
all,
spray
I'm
tan.
like, look at him
Why?
all glowed up in his buckle gear with the spray tan.
I'm just
Back
going
with
to tell you guys
remember when the
that spray
affliction
tans
shirts
do
were
not
cool?
for cute boys
The
made.
affliction shirts.
Yes,
so
they were
like-
from the same
So
store.
it was the same place. So everybody was like, I don't know, we're going to dress like we're
I'm
a
just telling you, if you get a spray
UFC
tan,
fighter overnight.
if
Because
you get a spray tan, I'm
Dude,
not gonna
I'm
kiss
going
you till
all
it
in. I'm
fades.
going orange like Trump's what I'm going to do. But they show up, say, I'm like, you can get married. We're not going to stop you, but I'm not going to marry you here.
No.
So I tried to get her dad to say something, right? And the dad wanted to unload it all on me and make me the bad
This is
guy.
where a dad can
So the
step
dad
in.
could be the dad should have stepped in because I was a
Yes.
kid preacher. Like I'm pretty young at this point, right? I don't think I was 30 yet,
Mhm.
if I'm looking back right. And so
But they
so
did wait a year.
I said, we're not going to marry you. Nobody from this church will marry you till he stays sober a year.
Yeah.
And he stayed sober a year. He
True.
married the girl, and then he went right back to the crack pipe
He did.
and destroyed her life for the next X amount of years.
was
Now they're out of
terrible.
this abusive cycle now. She's on and married to another guy doing well. Thankful. I'm still
so
praying for
grateful.
him. But I tell that as a warning because people hear our story and they think just because the guy's been in church and he's sober for a little while, he's going to be fine.
And listen, even when Brian was sober for a year and we were friends, when I say friends, we were friends. We were hanging out with other people. We were not hanging out alone. We were not kissing each other. We were not making out with each. The minute your lips hit somebody else's lips, your brain falls out of your head. You have no bargaining power. You have no wisdom. It's like
Jesse was
completely-
coming on to me all the time, but I
Yes,
was
you
like
know.
Joseph. And I
Uh-huh.
would run out of the house and,
Yeah.
you know,
I just keep
she's
his
like
cloak.
Potiphar's wife, but God kept me
No,
faithful.
but there was some boundaries in place and some real regulations in our life about what we were and we were
100%.
not going to do. In fact, people don't believe that part of our testimony because we literally went out on one date on Valentine's while we were engaged. But other than that, we hung out with people all the time. You did trick me into going to the circus once though. And you told me there were going to be people there and they were not. I think you were trying to get alone with me. It happens.
Serpent is more cunning than all the beasts of the field.
But we
What
were
can I
still in
say?
public. But I'm just telling you, we did that. Why? Not because we thought, we're ranked sinners and we can't, or that's we did it because we knew that both of us had a destiny in God, a specific purpose. I had never known anyone. Everyone that showed up to my youth ministry was like, I had sex with 7 different people and I did this and that and the other. And you shouldn't do any of those things because it'll wreck your life. You need to
You're
stay
talking
pure.
about testimony time.
And I'm like,
Top
has
this
anyone
testimony.
ever stayed pure? Because I feel like no one has. They just want me to, but they have not done it. And I just decided, man, I think it would be cool if someone did it and then told young people this is the
You
most
can do
powerful
this.
path. And so I will say God gave us grace to do that. That was not something that was easy, not something either one of us wanted to do, something that God asked. And then whenever we did get married, there was a real immense amount of trust that even when I'm the cutest person you've ever met, you didn't disobey God and I can trust you out of my presence. That takes a lot of jealousy and stuff away.
You said boundaries earlier.
Boundaries.
All right.
We just had boundaries.
We had boundaries. This kind of just clicked. And when you said it, I felt like I heard boundaries bring blessings.
Amen.
Right? Boundaries bring
They do.
blessings. You ought to write that down right now or say it out loud yourself. Boundaries bring blessings. And so there's boundaries before you get married that set you up for success.
Mhm.
Then there's boundaries once you get married
Ooh, that's
that
true.
set you up for success, right? There's boundaries you set up for your family life, your kids.
Yeah.
Set you up for success. It's really a culture that you create and you keep. And without appropriate boundaries,
Yeah.
things don't work. Like there's Proverbs in the Old Testament that says, don't move the ancient boundary lines, right? They would come whenever Israel was allotted out to different families, different people had different parts of ground, different pieces of ground. You know, you get some jerk living next to you, wants to
trying to kick
encroach
it
on
over.
your land.
Yeah.
And I've seen this happen out in the country. I'm from a farming community, rural, small town Kentucky, right? Guys will build a fence. They're next door to you. They'll want to come over onto your lands where they just, they come over just a few feet on your land where they can get a little more of your land. Well, the Bible says don't move the ancient boundary stones.
Yes.
There's something about a boundary that makes the lines clear and it brings a blessing. So for us,
And
like
every time we try to tell the next generation, like our children, these are the boundaries of the Gibsons. They want to push the boundary a little further.
every generation, wants to push
it's
the
natural.
boundaries.
They say, well, that's what you did when in the old days, but now things are different. Say,
And people that don't have boundaries want to make fun of your boundaries.
they do.
Although most of the time they don't have the same success or morality in their life that you might have.
No.
Because you don't succeed in life because of this strong willpower. Right? That's not the way
If
it
we would have
works.
left it to willpower, We would have had 3 kids before we were
Well,
married. I mean,
100%.
we like each other
Like,
just as
if
much
you
as the
leave
next
it to
person.
willpower, I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict right now.
Correct.
But the boundary I set changes that, right?
That's
I'm
right.
like, I'm not going to go to happy hour. I'm not going to sit around the guys that all they want to do is drink and hang out all the time.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going around the guys that sell dope. These are boundaries that'll bring blessing.
Yes.
If you put yourself there, you're going to be in trouble. So, like with teenagers or with our kids, it's like this, letting, like the stats have shown forever. Like if a kid is car dating, right? They're going out by themselves.
16.
Promiscuity and pregnancy and STDs and all of this kind of stuff we think about all hit another level. Teenage
Well,
pregnancy.
let me tell you,
when the car was created.
absolutely.
That changed it.
If you have a kid who's going out alone on a car date at 16, their percentage of having premarital sex goes up over 80%.
Like 80% of those kids are
And-
going to do it in the backseat
And
of that
if
car.
you wait,
80%.
if you wait until that same person, same kid is 18 years old, it drops by over 80%.
Yeah, the brain develops somewhere. They understand they have options. They can say no. They can back out of a
Yes.
situation. Things change. But
Boundaries.
think about this, like the beginning of time, if a guy wanted to date a girl, since the world was somewhat civilized,
Mhm.
he has to go over to the house and he walks into the house. Dad's there, mom's there, brothers are there. He's maybe eating dinner with them. He's right around there, maybe taking them a walk in the yard with the dad with his rifle and the sons, with them scoped down the way.
Yeah.
But they're watching. Somebody's watching. There's a boundary. There's a community watching them.
I really do
All right,
pray.
the car's created, and the next thing you know, you come, you pick up the chick, or whatever, you drive off, and there's nobody watching. There's no boundary there.
I really do pray that God would give the people around our kids good boundaries that they even insist on when our kids are around. Like if Justice, this isn't just about our girls. I want the people who Justice is interested in.
The boundaries.
I expect their family to have boundaries and to insist on those.
Well,
And I think it's a beautiful thing.
I-
That keeps everybody safe.
I think about these people that that their daughter's 16, 15, 16 years old. Some dude comes over the house and they let the boy go back in their daughter's bedroom, right? And like shut the door, or they're all like laid on top of each other on the couch or something. I'm like, over my dead body.
No,
Do you walk back there into my child's room
no.
like you're going to hang out in a bedroom? A bedroom's for sleeping or conceiving children, as far as I'm concerned. But I'm trying to really, really express how crazy I think that is, because I want your kids protected. Them have a good life. I'm a pastor. There's got to be boundaries pre-marriage, right?
Yes.
Then there's got to be boundaries for the marriage.
That's right. And boundaries bring blessing. Boundaries can be saying no to something, but boundaries can also be holding something inside. A lot of boundaries that we put up keep, our livestock inside our areas. Why? So that they are focused on the water and the food that is safe, so that they don't get outside and get in trouble, so that we know that they're secure. That's how farming works.
Yes.
And a lot of times in marriage, we think, well, we're just putting up boundaries to keep things out. But actually, you're putting up boundaries to keep things in. You could also call this investing in. But there are things Brian and I believe in. We believe in and you'll see it in this chapter. It's the process of investment. It's like the 7-day principle. That 7-day principle is absolutely a boundary that we set up in our life. It's also a principle, but it's a boundary that keeps things in the right spot. So in every 7 days, Brian and I throughout our life have pretty much had, we've gone through seasons where it was harder, but especially in the years of our kids being small, we had this boundary. It was like, we are going to go without children and have an adult conversation for at least 2 hours with our phones not present, not with us, like over to the side, focused on each other for 2 hours every week. We're going to do that every 7 days.
Every 7 days.
That's an investment, and it's a boundary that keeps things in where they're supposed to be, that draws you back to one another. When you know that you're going to have to sit down and look that person in the eye for 2 hours every Thursday, there's a part of you whose heart is being drawn back to them. I know we're about to have a relational moment. I know we're about to have a conversation. And I don't mean you're having a conversation about something hard, just talking. When you have little ones, you can go a good 6 months without looking your spouse in the eyeballs and never even think about it because you're looking down, you've got little ones, you're struggling. So it's so important that you take the time we call it the 7-day principle. It's every 7 days, every 7 months, we try to
Yeah.
get away for a couple of days at least. And we, whatever that looks like for you.
They would
Maybe
have the sevens were seven. Some pastors taught us this.
Yeah.
Pastor Bill and Sandy Shear Guts Church
absolutely.
taught us this years ago, and it was every 7 days a date.
Yep.
Then it was every 7 weeks you try to get a night by
A
yourself.
night.
It's not always easy, right? Every 7 weeks, but get the grandparents or somebody if you got somebody
Just
to help.
as many
where
hours as you can get.
where you could go a night, and then they would say every 7 months, right? It's a vacation of some kind
Well, not like a vacation. I think it's
Time
better
away.
to say time away
to spend
because,
with
like,
each other.
sometimes people, their budgets hit different places.
100%.
But if you can do a rest and a vacation for a few days, that's wonderful. It's good to
Yeah.
invest in that every 7 months. If you have to take a couple nights away, even if you have to sleep in a tent or in your car in the woods, or
Please don't make me sleep in a tent.
no, I don't want to. But
For me, camping is like, what is it? 3-star, something like that.
that's probably true.
3-star. Amen.
But everybody's in a different season of life. They're all in a different budget of life. So people say, oh, I can't do that, so I'm just not going to do anything. No, we do the best we can. But they taught us 7 days, 7 weeks a night, 7 months, a couple days away. For us, we had to do that. We had hundreds of people that we were trying to take care of, throughout the church.
Oh yeah.
And we were raising kids and trying to stay married. And we were young pastors. We started pastoring at 23 and 26. You know what you could, if you say, Jesse, we don't have a babysitter right now. We just moved to a new city and we don't have a babysitter and we don't have a lot of money. Okay, great. You put those babies in bed and you take the next 2 hours and you don't just veg out in front of the TV and pay no attention to one another. You share a cheeseburger, you share a Coca-Cola, you share a thing of French fries, and you look each other in the eye and you talk about your life. You reconnect and you look at each other. And if you can, you touch one another. And even in a non-sexual way, that's super connecting. It's so important, especially in that season of small children. You can go 6 months, not look at each other, not touch each other
Oh,
hardly,
you're changing clothes and
and
dirty
then
diapers and
it's just overwhelming. So
getting
we do
kids out of
that.
trees and stuff.
Brian added this, and we both thought it was so good that we added it to our boundary and investment list, this thing that keeps us healthy, right?
Yeah.
We put this in place in our life as something that's stable. It happens all the time. It's what we do. And that was that every 7 hours, we give each other a verbal understanding of how much we love or appreciate one another. So
Yeah.
something complimentary, just I love you, I'm thinking about you, something every 7 hours is how we remained close during those
Yeah.
times.
And that's not robotic. It's just become
No.
a part of what we do.
It's just what we do. If we're awake, we're going to look at each other and say, hey, you did good today on this. I'm going to say, actually,
I love you.
our I love you. Have a great day at work. Just something to let them know that you're engaged. You see them, you know that they're there. Our kids got to the point because we would tease and Brian would say, Jesse, you are a good preacher and you are a good mama. That's what he would tell me because he knew that those were the 2 places that I really cared. Like my heart was in those places. And so he would say to me, I love you, hon. And then he'd say, you are such a good preacher and you are such a good mama. And that would really do something for me. It helped me. Like he thinks I'm doing good in the mothering department and he thinks I'm an awesome preacher. Both of those things are the 2 parts of my life that I want to be the best in. And it got to the point where our small kids, they were like 3, 4, 5, something like that. And I would say, good night, honey. I love you. They'd say, I love you too. You're a good preacher and you're a good mama. And it was like, that was funny, but also I think really good in the household that there was an understanding that, and still to this day, especially our son, he's such a good, he compliments, he shows affection that way. He'll say, hey mom, how was your day? I'm like, what 15-year-old asks you how your day was? And it's funny to me. He turns 15 this next week. But he has such an ability to do that. When our whatever our kids hear, if they hear strife, they're gonna be fighters. If they hear degrading, you're terrible, I hate you, they're gonna be kind of unkind with their words. But if we choose to invest every day with what we're saying and we back it up with our actions throughout the week, months, and year, then our children will hear that, respond to it, and they express it. But also, if you're taking notes, if you're looking at this, they express it, but they also expect it. And as we have kids that are older and one in college, I'm super grateful that we did it, because she expresses it, he expresses it, whoever it is, but they also expect it. So when there is someone pursuing them,
They'll know who to look for.
they know who to look for, and they know when someone is not kind. And I think that that's a really, really big life skill to invest into your kids. They should be in an environment where when they're out of it and it's not loving, it's abusive, it's hateful, it's degrading, they say, this isn't how family is. This isn't
That's
how
right.
we love people. This has nothing to do with love. And I don't feel comfortable in this environment. And they leave that situation knowing that they're worth more than what is happening in that environment.
So right now I'm training my daughters on what kind of man they should want to marry.
Yes.
And what a good man looks like and how he treats a woman. So every time I treat Jessie, how I talk to her, how I interact with her, whether I cherish her, love her or not, they see that and they're drawn.
Yeah.
There is a part of people where they're looking for that. We repeat
They
what
love
we
it.
see in our family
Mhm.
systems. Good, bad, ugly. So right now, I want to tell every dad watching what you're doing is you're training your daughters on what kind of man to marry. And if you're a
Every
good dad,
woman, you're teaching your son what kind of woman he wants to live with.
yeah, they could still make some crazy choice.
Sure.
They have a free will, but I think you're stacking the deck in their favor.
Amen.
And I want to stack the deck for my daughters to marry the right kind of man. I want to stack the deck for my son to marry the right kind of woman, because the marriage relationship does have the power to make you or break you in a season of life, right? In a season of life, you're talking about when marriage gets bad, nothing is good.
Oh, it's so true.
Everything is stressful. Everything is hard. Money, relationships, job, workplace. Life is not compartmental. Life is one big stew where everything is rolled up together. There's no way to compartmentalize things. People think there is. It's not reality.
No.
So if the marriage gets bad, it gets in there and touches everything. You really need to think about what kind of model.
We also see the opposite in our kids. Like if we're fussing, or like, I know you guys never fuss
They never do.
or fight, but
Somebody else
we
does.
have
Somebody
times
from the other church.
That's
Yes,
right.
not
The other family.
yes.
But if we ever are having like a tense time and we're, not jiving just right, and there's like a aggression towards one another, our kids, I will literally hear them say, you guys need to go on a date. I think you've missed a little bit of date. I think you should have gone on a date. And because they know, they can see they're 13, 15, and 18 right now, almost 19. And they can look and
They know
see
what reality is.
reality is mom and dad are not jiving, which means that they haven't kept a principle here, and they need to get back to it, because they see the reward when we get back from that date. They see the peace, they see the help from heaven, they see the joy, they see me, knowing love, and him at knowing love, and us expressing that love. And that's not something you can fake. Like, you can't come in and just teach your kids that you're perfect. They know we're not perfect, but they know what makes the difference in life too.
That's good. There's a couple other boundaries I think we need to hit before we get off here.
Okay.
So you talk about investing, right? That's
Mhm.
something you got to do. You got to keep it in there. You got to
Yes.
invest. I think another thing you do is you never, we've made a deal where we never say the D word, right? You never say the D
No.
word. And I don't think we've ever said it. Now that I think about it.
I don't remember.
Might have
ever saying
threatened murder or something like that, but we've never said it. And that is divorce.
it. Yeah, you shouldn't murder your spouse. I'm
Some-
not laughing at that. I'm
some
just
people,
laughing
yeah.
at the fact that
I had a friend, listen to this. I had a friend from small town Kentucky who had a pastor in the Methodist church. All right. So they would send the Methodist group, God bless the Methodist. If you're a Methodist, if this offends you, I don't know, take it up with somebody other than me. But they would send to the little small country churches some of the guys that had problems or got in trouble other
no,
places.
yeah, that's true.
or-
That's what happened.
you know what I mean? If you're in the small areas, because they're moving people all the time. Well, they sent this pastor to their church, and he was married, somehow got out of the ministry, became a professional card player. Or no, one of them became a professional gambler,
Poker,
but one of them,
like
poker
a
player.
poker player. Yeah.
Yeah, one of them, which is not really becoming of a New Testament minister, just so you know. The other one goes to bed one day and his wife comes in with a chainsaw or some kind of saw,
Yeah.
decapitates the man's head
That's
while he's
very gruesome.
sleeping.
Very gruesome.
Right? I mean, this is like, I don't know why I'm telling this story, but
Don't
it's insane.
listen.
These are some people that didn't have some borders or some
that-
boundaries.
I think borders, boundaries, and like sometimes in marriage, you just got to bind the spirit of murder.
yeah, you got to bind
Like
it.
you got to say, "Hey, I'm not going to participate with you," because things cross your mind that shit like
Well,
it should
if
not
you
be
start,
there.
if you start throwing out like we're going to get divorced, right? We said
Yes.
we've said murder, not divorce. But if you start throwing out we're going to get divorced, I'll leave you.
Becomes the abundance
I'll
of
leave
your heart.
your butt. Not it becomes the abundance of your heart. Also, it gets out there in the atmosphere,
Yeah.
and your words have power.
Also, your kids hear that and they're like, "Someone's leaving. Everything's unstable."
They're
They start
fear-filled.
talking. People told me early on, when you disagree with Brian in front of the kids, like have a fight. I don't mean we disagree on where
You're
we're
going to
going,
disagree.
but like a big, fight. It's like kids watching the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit disagree and have a fight. It's not natural, normal, or beneficial. Like it's bad for children. So we haven't always done that perfectly, but I think it contained a lot of ours because Brian and I are very aggressively opinionated, and
Yeah, sure.
when we have a disagreement, it's usually heated. I mean, we have an ability.
It's short though.
It's short, but it's very like to the point. And then it'll be like 5 minutes and we're pretty much done. But if we have 5 minutes hard and fast of fighting and our kids hear it, then we're done. But our kids are still carrying that unsure heart and that nervousness into the next few days of their life. And that can really affect a kid's emotional state, their nervous system, and affect their trauma level. We have to be the ones who take care of our kids. I will say another boundary, Brian, is we've always stood by this. I don't have friends that are guys and you don't have friends that are girls
No.
unless we have friends that are married that we're, all friends with. But we don't, like, I don't have a guy that I go shopping with. That's not happening. You don't have a girl that you go to dinner with or go to lunch with or whatever it is that you do. And in some professions, this becomes difficult for people, but it is very important. Brian and I travel. We go to churches. You would think that wouldn't be a thing, but sometimes they'll try to send someone of the opposite sex to just pick us up, to take us somewhere and to cart us around for 2 or 3 days.
Most know better, but some won't do
but
it.
sometimes
Some.
and we've had to say, I'm so
can't do
sorry,
that.
but I can't do that. Someone else is going to have to come, and it makes it uncomfortable and it's nerve-wracking. And the easiest thing to do is just to be like, "Oh, I'll just hop in the car. I don't care anything." But if you ride around with someone for a day, 2 days, and you're just chatting and getting to know each other, the devil knows a playground when he sees it. And that
100%.
is a recipe for disaster. I know people that say, "My best friend is this guy." I'm like, "Aren't you married?" They're like, "Oh yeah, but I just talk on the phone and my husband's in the house when I'm talking." I'm like, that guy is wanting to do something else and he wants you to be distracted. That's not healthy.
Okay,
Number
if the
two-
guy's not gay, right?
Well, yeah.
Which
What do you mean, the husband or the
no,
friend?
I'm talking about the friend. Okay, if the guy really is gay, which obviously that's not a healthy relationship you got going there
No.
anyway. But I've never been friends with a woman
No.
that somewhere down in there before I got married. You know what that man wants to do? That's acting like he's your friend. He wants to sleep with you.
And they're
This
gonna
is
say
the
no.
way it works.
They're
They're
just
going
going
to
to say
say
he's
that's
crazy. He
not
doesn't
so.
know my friend.
Men aren't
We
friends
know your
with
friend.
women like that.
We've seen hundreds of your friends.
Yeah, 100%.
Every
And
person
acting like
who's
that's
ever-
not reality.
No, it's not reality.
And like even I've seen times where
We're just going to start get hate mail on the line.
yeah, I don't care. In the church world, I've seen guys that'll want to be too friendly.
Mhm.
And the next thing you know, this guy's friends with all the girls.
All the women.
And I'm like, what is up with that?
Listen, Brian doesn't even have enough words in a day.
We have male leaders to drill down into that and fix it. It's like, hey, somebody go talk to this guy. He's not going to be friends with all the women.
No.
Because that's going somewhere and there's a spirit or something that's driving there.
You don't
It's
even
not a
have
safe
enough
place.
words to do your job and to come home and keep talk to me as much as I would like to be talked to.
No, and I'm a professional
And you're
speaker.
a professional speaker. So
Yeah,
I
this is
can't
what
even
I do.
like you have more words than almost any human man I've ever met in my
100%.
entire life. And I think, what is he taking from home and giving to all of these friendships? And what is she losing at home because he has attention everywhere else? It's not healthy. So the boundary in our marriage has been no guys and no girls, nobody of the opposite sex that's just a friend. We don't do it. It's a no-go. We don't hang out with people. We don't just talk, just chat with people for no reason. And
Here's
that's how
another
we do
good
it.
boundary, Jesse,
Okay.
that like we've had what we call the Spidey sense rule.
Oh, that's
All right.
true.
So, like, if there's somebody around in our world around us, and let's say Jesse thinks a girl, and not that we think everybody wants us or anything like that,
No.
but it's becoming less of a problem for me all the time as I look like Saint Nick
Again, we were
more and
23
more.
and
I'm
26
talking back when
we
I was,
began.
when I was young and stuff. I'm still young,
Speak
but I'm
for
just great.
yourself. I'm
But
fantastic.
anyway, so if some chick shows up and she's wanting to get too close around, there's something weird there. Jesse can say to me, "There's something I don't like there." I
Yeah.
think whether there's anything or not, we've created this in our house where if she says that person gives me the creeps, I think they're after you, my spidey sense, right? When you just think you know something, she could say, I want her away from your world, and we'll create appropriate parameters. And I could say the same thing to her. It's like, I don't like that dude. He shows up there. He's wanting your attention too much. I don't like it. Cut it out. Like, we're in covenant together. And if she sees that and she thinks that about a situation with me, I yield to her discernment.
Mhm.
And if I think that about her, she yields to my discernment. I can't think of a situation like that in a long, long time.
No. But
But
you know what? I don't even
there are
think
preacher killers and ministry killers. So there are
Mhm.
women that show up in ministry and they want to be seen and noticed.
Yeah.
And ministry people look like a good, safe person. Maybe they come out of an abusive relationship.
Mhm.
Somebody treat them like crap at home. They think that's a preacher. That's a man of God. Wouldn't it be nice to be around them? Or a woman that cares. She's a good mother. That whatever. That there's a spirit that drives them to want the attention of that person, and they can be doing that, not even understanding.
even
they're doing
knowing.
it. They're just
Sure.
broken. But you can't let their brokenness mess up your life.
And a lot of times people feel socially responsible to allow it. So it's like, well, that's going to make for an awkward social situation. So we'll just allow it to go on, and we'll just be But there have even been times when I've said to you, "Listen, there's nothing going on with me. Not a single thing in the world that's a temptation. But that guy that is your friend does not need to come over to the house. He doesn't need to be a part of mine and the kids' lives. That's just not a place that." A safe place. He would take advantage of a situation if he got the chance.
Jesse said this about a guy years ago.
Mhm.
I'm going way back, like way, way back. So there's nobody thinking who it is.
Yeah.
She said
So
this
it's
about
not
a
always
guy.
like I'm accusing him. Like,
No.
it's
Years
not an
ago, you said there was
accusation.
a guy that was up to no good. And I'm kind of like, is he? I kind of thought that about it. Is he? Because he hadn't done anything overt.
Mhm.
You just knew. Well, come to find out, this guy was like a serial stalker of married women in
He
our
was.
community. And this guy run around acting like he's a church guy. He bedded like 7 different women.
He
Married
would
women.
wait till men went on shift and then go over and ask their wife if there was any errands he could run for them. Could he get them
Oh, he's
groceries?
just going to help you.
And before you
Sister,
knew
can I
it,
pray
they
for
he
you?
would they
I
would be
love
meeting
you.
him at the local
I'm
hotel.
talking a stinking wolf,
Yeah, he was.
and still is a wolf, I think.
He is. Yeah.
But Jesse picked that up. I didn't see it at all, but she said it to me.
Both
She
of
said,
us don't have to hear from God
"No,
for us
well,
to
one
do
of
something.
you does."
But I mean, both of us don't have to be like,
No,
oh, I totally heard from the Lord. It's just one person has to have a check in their spirit, or what we call the spidey sense, and say, I'm uncomfortable. I don't feel like this is good for our family to succeed. And we get behind that person because we respect each other's ability to hear from the Lord. It's really an important skill set in marriage to know that the spouse, and even if I don't hear it, Brian will say, someone asked me one day, they're like, my husband feels called to the mission field and I haven't heard from the Lord at all. And I just think if we were called to the mission field, God would have spoken to both of us. And I said, well, when you get that, they were like, so what do you think? I'm like, well, if you get that figured out, let me know. Cause I've lived in Owensboro, Kentucky and pastored for 12 years on the word that my husband was supposed to build him a church, build him a church, build him a church. And I've never heard from the Lord once on it. And I've just served and done what I'm doing because I believe that Brian Gibson hears from the Lord. And I'm trusting that we're in the will of God and I feel peace whenever I'm in the will of God and I feel peace now. They were like, you never heard and you just up and moved your whole life 1,000 miles. I said, yes, because I trust him. When I married him, I trusted that he could hear from the Lord. And I think it's really important that everybody doesn't have to hear an audible voice for you to do something in life, even big life decisions. If you believe that that is what you're supposed to do and you're the trigger puller in the home, right? You pull that trigger and then then that's obviously a good thing. But you even use that. You married me. You think that I know the Lord's voice and believe that, and you trust that. And so you've been very trusting of me at times whenever it made no sense to you. And I've
Yeah.
said, listen, I'm here. And I don't use that as a manipulation, but if I hear from God, I'm going to tell you. And then you get to decide. But you've always been very gracious in being like, if God spoke to you, I'm in. I'm not missing this moment. And we've
Yeah.
I think that that's a great boundary to have with each other.
Yeah, just a little leadership tidbit for men too, because you are the head of the house.
That's true.
You know, you're called to lead your family, but a good leader uses everybody that's available to them and isn't an expert in every field
True.
and knows there's somebody in your organization that does things better than you do. And sometimes that's your wife in areas. And so having to be the man to make every decision, I'm the man, shows me you're really not the man. You're probably an insecure little boy that feels good about jerking a woman around.
Yeah.
And you ought to get delivered from that, because there's good chance that your wife knows some stuff better. Now, I don't pull like the leadership card unless I absolutely know. And this is a major decision.
Yeah.
Like I don't pull the leadership card till I have to. I think that's the way a good leader operates, right?
Mhm.
People should want to follow you if you're a good leader, but you shouldn't have to tell them you're the leader.
Yeah.
They should
You're
know
like,
that, right? I'm
I brought
the
my new
husband. I'm
I
like,
brought my new business
she doesn't
card.
know you're the
It says
husband yet. I
leader.
mean, what's wrong with you, right? And there are some ladies that are trained the opposite way, where I'm independent, I'm this, I'm that, I'm that. No, you're not independent. You're married.
Yeah.
All right. We're both married.
Your
We're,
independent days
we're
are over.
interdependent. None of us are independent.
No.
And so we got to make decisions that way. But I think some of these boundaries will really help some people. Listen, we've written about all of this, and I don't know if you know about the book. There's love handles. They're dropping right now where this can be bought on Amazon. Also, our link tree. You can see it there and get to it there. Buy a copy of it now. If you're older, you say I've been married 100 years, we pretty well have this deal worked out, or it's not getting any better. You ought to buy it for your young people, your
Yes.
kids, your grandkids. We wrote it to be a blessing for
I think
people.
it is super important though that we do learn even when we think we're beyond learning, because young people are asking us questions. And sometimes between being a grandparent and being a 20-year-old newlywed, there's a 40-year-old couple that's in the middle of those generations that can kind of help bridge the gap and give advice. And it may give the grandparents some help in how they handle those 20-year-olds.
Plus, some people have been married a long time, have a great marriage, and they figured these things out naturally,
And they don't know how to tell
but
people.
they don't know how to teach it.
Yeah.
You know, you can find leadership books and you can be around great leaders. And a lot of times they don't need any help with leadership books, but the leadership books help them teach leadership.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think that can be true too. And we wrote this to be a resource to people. So go get it, buy 1,000 copies, and thank
Absolutely.
you. All right. What we want to do is we want to pray for your marriage right now. We want to pray for a blessing upon you and your household. And we'll see you again soon. So let's pray. Father, I bless the people under the sound of my voice. I thank you for their house, their life, their marriage. We come against anything that would try to break them apart.
Yes, Lord.
We bind it, we speak against it, and now we loose a blessing on their marriage, on that husband, on that wife, on their children.
Yes,
And we pray
Lord.
they rise up and
Thank
they're
you, Father.
blessed in Jesus' mighty name.